Objective trees are helpful tools to use when finding the solution to a problem. They are most efficiently used alongside a core problem tree as a way to analyze solutions. This tree provides a structure to identify the challenges, requirements, and potential consequences of a given solution. Developing an objective tree makes it easier to create solutions that address root causes rather than the symptoms of an issue. Therefore, creating an objective tree is a useful step in problem solving, as it provides the structure for understanding the issue at hand in depth and developing tailored solutions. Since objective trees are most commonly and most efficiently used as an analysis tool for a pre-existing core problem tree, this article works off the assumption that you've already made a core problem tree to work with. We work off the example tree we used in our core problem tree article. It may be helpful to duplicate your core problem tree document and simply edit entities as you reframe the problem. Settings for an objective tree follow the same setup as a core problem tree, so if you're working in a duplicated core problem tree document, the settings will be ready to go. If you're working in a new document, some settings will need to be changed in order to match the example tree we make here. We set the orientation of our tree to bottom to top, with the bias set to top. Trees can be made in any linear orientation option, so feel free to change this if you'd like. However, we recommend setting the bias to the top of the tree, or the area that is furthest away from the roots of the tree. Objective trees are built in the same way core problem trees are, with edges leading up to the core entity, which is edges that are leading up to the effect entities. Keep this in mind when choosing an orientation. This way of formatting the tree allows for the edges to be read in a fluid sentence. For example, the edge between the entities A and B can be read as A is why B happens or exists, or a simpler A causes B. We've created an example domain that is different from our core problem tree domain for clarity. This is completely optional to use, and if you're using a pre-existing core problem tree as a template, it will be easier to continue with that tree's domain. Our example domain consists of 3 entities: a means entity, an objective entity, and an effects entity. You can download the domain using this post on our forum. The first file is a blank flying logic document that has the domain already in its domain menu. The second file is another flying logic document with the domain included. However, it also includes the tree we make here. The final link is a PDF of our example tree. If you're building a tree from scratch, feel free to either edit the example domain, make your own domain, or use the general domain in the default domain menu. The objective is the equivalent of the core problem in a core problem tree. It sits between the means and the effects and encompasses the solution you are laying out in the tree. Our core problem tree has the core problem, river water quality is deteriorating. To create the objective for our tree, we reframe the problem of the core problem tree as its solution, or the situation we would like the current problem to be in the future. For example, instead of deteriorating, we want river water quality to improve. Therefore, we get the objective, river water quality improves. If you're building a tree from scratch, you will need to establish an issue to work with before starting your tree. Objective trees will only ever have one objective. So, if you have multiple issues you would like to address, you will need to make multiple trees. Once you have an established issue, use the same reframing process described above to create your objective. You can add the objective entity and begin your tree by dragging an objective domain onto the canvas, then label it with a clear description of what your objective is. Right now, it will be on its own, so our tree looks like this. Means are things that are required in order for the objective to happen. They are solutions to smaller, more specific problems that create a domino effect that leads to the objective. The means of an objective tree are the same entities as the causes of a core problem tree. If you're working off a pre-existing core problem tree as a template, you can simply change the content of the cause entities to the means you create. Determining means follows the same process as determining the objective. You can take a cause from your problem and rewrite it as its fixed situation, and you've got a means. For example, in our core problem tree, one of the first causes that was added was that high levels of solid waste is being dumped into rivers. To rewrite this as a means for our tree, we would change it to the solution that would fix the issue. Instead of high levels of waste, little to no solid waste would be dumped into rivers. If you aren't working from a core problem tree, you'll need to create new entities altogether. You can ask yourself and other stakeholders what is needed for the objective to happen. Researching the objective and what issues are currently preventing it from being the status quo can be helpful in finding means. Means are added as predecessors to the objective. So in our example, the means go under the objective entities with edges leading up to it. To add entities to the canvas, you can drag means entities into the drop zone of the objective entity at the bottom edge. You can also drag mean entities onto the canvas and connect them to the objective entity manually. The first layers of means preceding the objective can be referred to as immediate means. An objective will usually have more than one layers of means, as means can have means of their own. The second layer is referred to as secondary means. Again, if you are working from a core problem tree, these entities will already exist and simply need to be rewritten in the same way you did the immediate means. If you're building a tree from scratch, you'll want to repeat the process of asking what's needed for something to happen, this time focusing on a means entity instead of the objective. Our tree has 3 layers of means, however, yours may have more. After all the means are added, our tree looks like this. The effects of an objective tree will be the same entities as the effects of a core problem tree. However, in the objective tree, we can rewrite the effects in a positive light. If you're working from a template, you can reframe the effects that are already in your tree as what they'll become when the objective happens. For example, one of the effects of our core problem tree was high incidences of waterborne diseases and illnesses. If your objective comes to pass and water quality improves, there will be less incidences of waterborne diseases or illnesses. If you're not working with a pre-existing core problem tree, you'll need to determine effects from scratch. A good question to use to think about potential effects is, what would happen if the objective happened? Effect entities are added as successors to the objective. You can add effect entities to your tree by either dragging an effects entity to the applicable drop zone on the objective entity, or dragging them onto the canvas and connecting an edge from the objective to the effect entities manually. Effects have immediate and secondary effects the same way means do. If you're working from a core problem tree, continue rewriting the already existing entities. If you're building a tree from scratch, you can ask the question, what would happen if this immediate effect happened? Secondary effects are successors to immediate effects. After all the effects in our example are added, our finished tree looks like this. A finished objective tree will have many solutions already listed that you can carry out to work towards the objective. However, it can be helpful to consciously create a plan of action in order to achieve the entity. To devise a plan of action, focus mainly on the means of the objective tree. These are smaller, more specific goals to achieve, and working towards them simultaneously works towards the objective. A plan of action could be started on the bottommost layers of means and working upwards. Achieving the smallest means alone may create a domino effect that achieves the entity. Your plan of action will ultimately depend on what you're looking to achieve, how many resources you're able to put toward achieving it, and the amount of influence you have for your means. In our example, a given company or organization may not have the influence to make river quality a larger political priority, so that's an unreasonable path to take. Regardless, your tree is now finished, and you have a reference to potential solutions to work towards in order to meet your goal.